Ever since I recall, I have followed football, and ingrained in my heart are the Rangers FC. Through good and the bad, times of happy or sad, it will always be Rangers for me. For when I was a lad, I was led by the hand down the Paisley Road West. I will never forget that beautiful sight of the red, blue and white. From the day I'd be Rangers for life. And I vowed to my dad, if I too have a lad, I would show him the way as he did on that day. And so now here I stand with young Lyle by the hand, after walking down Paisley Road West.
In 1946, Bill Struth, Rangers' legendary manager, was faced with one of his toughest tasks of all. Jerry Dawson, the prince of goalkeepers, had left Rangers, and the job of replacing him was then done. I'm glad to be in the home of Rangers legend Bobby Brown. We're in Helensburgh today, and Bobby's going to do an interview for us. Thank you for coming on the show, Bobby.
Pleasure.
Bobby, can you tell us first of all, when you signed for Glasgow Rangers, how it felt?
Well, I signed in 1946, and that was just after the end of the war, and it felt really wonderful because I had a great interview with Mr. Struth. Prior to that, Matt Busby, the legendary manager of Manchester United, had spoken to me, and as it was the end of the war and everyone was resettling themselves back into Civvy Street, I felt it was a wonderful opportunity to have the opportunity to have the chance to play for Rangers, and I was extremely happy.
So at that point you'd already had some great life experiences, I believe, Bobby. I mean, we're speaking about a man who, in your lifetime, you served as a school principal. Later on in your years, the manager of Scotland. You served for our King and Country at the time.
Yeah, well, before I signed for Rangers, I should mention that as a schoolboy at Falkirk High School, playing in their team, at the outbreak of war, I'm going back to 1940 now. There was one day I just finished playing for the school team, and a message came to say that I was required to play for Queen's Park, as they were playing Celtic, and with the war having started, the two goalkeepers that Queen's Park had, one was an Egyptian, I recall his name, Mustafa Mansour. He had gone back to Egypt, and the second team goalkeeper was a lieutenant in the Territorials, and he had been called up that morning, and Celtic were the opponents. They had their wonderful Empire Exhibition winning team of 1938. So as a young boy I made my baptism to senior football in 1940, and on that day I conceded 4 goals, but Queen's Park had a good side then, and we scored 4, so all was well at the end. Following that, I volunteered. I was a student at Jordan Hill Training College, and 6 or 7 of us all volunteered to train as pilots with the Fleet Air Arm, and so we joined, and I went to Dartmouth. I was fortunate there that I was allowed to come back to Scotland and play in the Queen's Park games, and soon after that I became Scotland's goalkeeper in the full international, and I recall that in my first game for Scotland, the late Matt Busby, legendary manager of Manchester United, he was the captain, and we won that game. Then I was capped again against England, and right throughout the war I was consistently Scotland's goalkeeper, and also for the Scottish League, and that gave me a wealth of experience, so that when the war finished, I was in a position, having been married, that and wishing to resettle myself, that I was delighted when Mr. Struth came along. I should also mention that Matt Busby spoke to me at length with a view to signing for Manchester United. We met at length in St Enoch's Hotel, but my heart was set on joining Rangers, who I knew were interested, and I also knew that they wanted a an experienced goalkeeper, so with the experience that I had behind me, I was in a position to take over from the legendary Jerry Dawson.
So Bobby, I believe you were an amateur player when you made your first international debut before coming to Rangers.
Yes, and as I recall, I think that I'm the last amateur to have played in a full international. So I believe. I remember when my first game with Rangers coincided with Sammy Cox signing from Dundee. He was a Dundee player at the time. And if I can recall the team on that day, it was myself, Sammy Cox was the right back, and Jock Shaw was left back. Charlie Watkins and George Young and Scott Simon. Scott, I played quite a bit with Scott, a great friend after he finished with the game, but Scott was left half. We had Waddle and Gillick, and we had Jimmy Smith, who was a great centre forward for Rangers in the old mould. About 16 stone, but very nimble and a terror of all the goalkeepers, because in those days, unlike today, you could hit the goalkeeper with the shoulder and hassle and bustle when he had the ball. Jimmy Smith was centre forward. Inside left was Billy Williamson, and on the wing was Jimmy Caskey. I recall we won that game 4-0, but one interesting incident which I think was amusing was that in the second half, when we were winning 3-0, I got the ball and I threw it out to Jimmy Smith, who was on the left touchline. He had moved to the left touchline, and I always remember that he ambled up the left side of the field, and the area defence couldn't stop him. He was a huge man, and he got up to the byline, and as he was doing this, so the area defence had all come away from the centre of the field, and as he ambled along the byline, Scott Simon, I remember, was screaming at him to get a cut back, which was the obvious thing to do. Instead of that, Jimmy took his left foot, and with the outside of it, he flicked the ball and he hit the side net. Whereupon Scott, using a few vitriolic words, said, "Why don't you do the easy thing?" Whereas Jimmy said, "What's easier than that?"
Okay.
I recall that story, and that was my first baptism with Rangers, and it was a very happy occasion, having won 4-0. It was the old Broomfield again. The match had been sold out about a month prior to playing. In those days, huge demand for football is #1 entertainment, and 25,000 crowded into Broomfield, and for me, not only to win, but not to concede a goal was a very happy occasion.
So your first thoughts on you joined Rangers Football Club at the time, it would have been a massive occasion for you.
Yes, it was a great occasion, and but having said that, the first year was not easy. I took a considerable time to settle, and I think the reason for that was that Rangers had been extremely generous to me in the signing on fee that I got, being an amateur, and with the signing on fee I had a house built near the Wallace Monument in Stirling, and about 1.5 acres of ground, which and I think with part of the money that I got from Rangers, who, as I say, were extremely generous, and I've got to say this, and I've said it many times, I owe Rangers a tremendous debt of gratitude for starting me off in life, particularly after the war, when everyone had to pick up the pieces. And the money that I got was spread over a number of years for tax purposes, and I think there was a little bit of resentment with one or two of the seasoned players that as a goalkeeper I was getting more than they did. But after about a year, by which time the defence had changed, and Sammy Cox had moved to left half, and Willie Woodburn had come into the team, Ian McCall had signed, and that really was the start of what has become the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, we'll speak about that in a few minutes' time. Just so, but as you had signed for the club, as a kid, growing up in Dunnipace, were you a Rangers supporter? What was your feelings in the club then? And then can you tell us about your relationship with the great Bill Struth and how you found him as a man and a manager?
Well, as I said earlier, Mr. Struth was extremely generous to me, and I found him, as a manager, I found him very strict disciplinarian, and he certainly taught everyone how to dress and maintain their dress, collar and tie at all times, and to remember that they were representing the Rangers Football Club wherever they went. If I made a mistake, he never in any way sort of got on to me, certainly not after the match, but he would quietly call you up on a Monday and speak to you about your position and what was happening. And I found him extremely fair. There were other occasions, and one of these occasions actually, when I went up, and after he had talked to me about the football aspect, he mentioned that what else did I do? And I told him, well, I was a school teacher, and I was hoping to play golf. And I remember he said to me, hoping to play golf? Yes, I said, I wanted to buy a few clubs. He says, you can have mine. I don't think I'll have any further use for them. He gave me a lovely leather bag full of golf clubs. That was one occasion. There was another occasion after a game when I went in for training, and Jimmy Smith, the trainer, said, the boss wants to see you, Bobby, and Willie Waddle, Sammy Cox and Jock Saw. And of course in those days, if he wanted to see you, you sort of went up the marble stair, you squared your shoulders, and you wondered what was in for you. Anyway, he sat us down and he looked at us and he said, first of all to Willie Waddle, do you want a motor car? This would be about in 1947, give or take. Willie said yes. Said the same to Jock Shaw. Said yes. Said the same to Sammy Cox. Said yes. Said, then he came to me and he said, do you want a motor car, Bobby? I said, I can't drive. Well, you'll have to learn. Well, in those days, as opposed to now, where there are so many cars on the road and they want to remove them, it was a 5-year waiting time to buy a car. 5 years. Very difficult to believe that in this day and age.
Yeah.
But having said that, these cars were in car laws of Glasgow, I always remember that, ready to be picked up by us. I had to go and learn and pass my test, and Julie got my car. It was an Austin A40, and that was one of the methods that Mr. Struth adopted. He wasn't always the stern-faced person that you could be afraid of, but having said that, he was always the boss.